Welcome to the Nightmare Network. This episode will feature spine-chilling Reddit horror stories. Today we're diving into 3 terrifying encounters that took place in abandoned buildings, those forgotten structures that seem to hold on to the darkness long after their lights have gone out. These stories come from real Reddit users who experienced something they'll never forget. So dim the lights, get comfortable, and prepare yourself for 3 tales that will make you think twice about exploring abandoned places. Story 1. The Night Shift at the Old Hospital. This happened to me about 2 years ago when I was working security for a property management company. They assigned me to watch over an old psychiatric hospital that had been closed since the 1980s while they figured out what to do with the property. The building was massive, 4 stories of endless hallways, patient rooms, and treatment areas. Most of the windows were boarded up, but a few had been broken by vandals over the years. My job was simple. Walk the perimeter a few times during my 12-hour shift and make sure no one was breaking in. For the first few weeks, everything was normal, boring even. I'd bring a book, patrol every couple hours, and that was it. But then I started noticing inconsistencies. I always did my rounds the same way, ground floor first, working my way up. On the 2nd floor, there was this long hallway with patient rooms on both sides. The doors were all supposed to be open, fire department regulations, but I kept finding one door, room 237, closed. The first time, I figured it was just the wind or maybe the building settling. Old buildings do weird things, right? I'd open it, prop it with the doorstop, and continue my rounds. But the next night it would be closed again. This went on for about a week before I decided to investigate room 237 more thoroughly. During the day shift, I brought a flashlight and really examined the room. It was identical to all the others. Bare walls, a hospital bed frame still bolted to the floor, and one of those old metal restraint chairs pushed into the corner. But there was something else. Scratches on the walls around the door frame. Deep ones, like someone had been clawing at the wall from the inside. And they looked fresh. That night I decided to test something. During my 2 a.m. round, I found the door closed as usual. But instead of opening it, I pulled out my phone and started recording. I wanted to see if I could catch whatever was closing that door. I positioned myself at the end of the hallway where I could see room 237, turned off my flashlight, and waited. For 20 minutes, nothing happened. I was starting to feel stupid when I heard it. A soft scraping sound like fingernails on wood. Then I saw something that made my blood freeze. The door handle was turning, slowly, deliberately from the inside. I watched as the door swung open just a few inches, then stopped. No wind could have done that. The door was heavy and it took effort to move it. Something was inside that room and it had just opened the door. I should have left right then. Should have called my supervisor and quit on the spot, but curiosity and stupidity won out. I turned on my flashlight and called out, "Hello? Security, is someone in there?" The door immediately slammed shut. That's when I ran. Straight down 4 flights of stairs and out to my car. I sat there until sunrise, watching the building, trying to convince myself I'd imagined it all. I quit the next day and never went back. But I did some research on the hospital. Turns out room 237 was where they kept the most violent patients. The last person housed there was a woman who died in 1979 after attacking 3 orderlies. According to the records, she had to be restrained almost constantly because she would claw at the walls and try to escape. She died alone in that room, scratching at the door until her fingernails were gone. Story 2. The Factory Photography Session. I'm a photographer who specializes in urban decay, abandoned buildings, forgotten places, that sort of thing. I've been in hundreds of empty structures over the years, and I've never believed in ghosts or supernatural stuff. Everything has a logical explanation. Until I visited the old Riverside manufacturing plant. The factory had been closed since 2003 when the company moved operations overseas. It was scheduled for demolition, so I only had a narrow window to get my shots. I got permission from the demolition company and planned to spend a full day documenting the place. The building was enormous. 3 stories of industrial equipment, conveyor belts, and machinery, all covered in a thick layer of dust and rust. Perfect for my portfolio. I started on the ground floor around noon, working methodically through each section. The light coming through the dirty windows was incredible, casting these dramatic shadows across the old equipment. I was getting some of my best shots ever. By late afternoon, I'd worked my way up to the 3rd floor. This level was different, smaller rooms that looked like they'd been offices and break areas. Most were empty except for some old desks and chairs. That's when I found the room at the end of the hall. Unlike the others, this room was set up like someone was still using it. There was a folding table in the center with several chairs arranged around it. On the table were old lunch boxes, thermoses, and what looked like time cards scattered around. But here's the thing. There was no dust. Everything else in the building was covered in years of accumulated grime. But this room looked like it had been cleaned recently. I started taking pictures, thinking it was some kind of historical preservation thing the demolition company had set up. But when I looked through my camera's LCD screen to review the shots, I saw something that shouldn't have been there. In every photo, the chairs around the table appeared to be occupied. I couldn't see anything with my naked eye, but the camera was picking up these shapes. Vague, translucent figures sitting in each chair like they were having a meeting or eating lunch together. I deleted the photos and tried again, thinking it was some kind of technical glitch or dust on my lens. But the same thing happened. Clear as day through the camera, empty to my eyes. That's when I heard the voices. Quiet at first, like people having a conversation in the next room. But there was no next room. I was at the end of the hall. The voices were coming from inside the room with me. I could make out fragments. 3rd shift production numbers. Need to talk to management. My wife packed extra sandwiches. Normal workplace conversation, except the workplace had been closed for over 20 years. Sound effect. Overlapping whispered voices. I kept taking pictures, my hands shaking now. The figures in the camera were becoming clearer, more defined. I could see faces, clothing, even details like wedding rings and work badges. Then one of them looked directly at my camera. An older man in a flannel shirt and hard hat turned his head toward me and stared straight into the lens. He looked confused, like he was trying to figure out who I was and what I was doing there. That's when I realized what I was looking at. These weren't ghosts. These were the memories of the building itself. The echoes of decades of workers who'd spent their lives in this place, somehow imprinted on the room where they gathered every day for lunch. I ran, left my expensive camera bag behind, and just ran. When I got home, I looked up the factory's history. In 1987, there had been a gas leak on the third floor that killed 6 workers during their lunch break. They were found seated around a table in what the news reports called the employee breakroom. I never developed those photos. Some things are better left alone. Before we dive into our final story, please note that all names mentioned have been changed to protect the privacy of those involved. Story 3. The Cement Plant Exploration. This happened when I was 17, about 4 years ago. Me and 3 friends were really into urban exploration. We'd spend weekends checking out abandoned buildings, taking photos, just exploring places that had been forgotten. We'd heard about this old cement manufacturing plant about an hour outside town that had been shut down since the early 2000s. The place was supposed to be massive. Multiple buildings, silos, underground tunnels, the whole industrial complex. We planned it out like we always did. Brought flashlights, cameras, first aid kit. Told our parents we were camping so they wouldn't worry if we got back late. The plan was to get there around sunset, explore for a few hours, and head home. The plant was surrounded by a chain-link fence, but like most abandoned places, there were plenty of holes cut by other explorers over the years. We found a gap near the back of the property and squeezed through. The main building was incredible. This huge concrete structure with massive windows, most of them broken out. Inside there were conveyor belts, old machinery covered in rust, graffiti from previous explorers. Everything was covered in this fine layer of cement dust that got into everything. We split up to cover more ground, which I know sounds stupid now, but we were experienced. We all had radios and agreed to meet back at the entrance in 2 hours. I was exploring the upper levels when I heard Marcus calling for us on the radio. His voice sounded weird, excited, but also nervous. "Guys, you need to see this. I'm in the basement level of Building 3. There's something down here." The 3 of us met up and followed Marcus's directions to Building 3. It was one of the smaller outbuildings, and we almost missed the entrance to the basement. Just a concrete staircase leading down into darkness. The basement was different from the rest of the plant. While everything else was industrial and open, this felt more like living space. Someone had been down there recently. There were sleeping bags, camping equipment, battery-powered lanterns, canned food, water jugs. But it wasn't just camping gear. There were personal belongings scattered around. Clothes, books, even some children's toys. Marcus pointed to what had really freaked him out. A wall covered in photographs. Hundreds of photos, all pinned to the concrete wall. Most were surveillance-style shots taken with a telephoto lens. Pictures of people going about their daily lives, walking to their cars, mowing their lawns, kids playing in backyards. But what made it really disturbing was that many of the photos had been taken from inside people's houses. Through windows, from backyards, some that looked like they were taken from inside bedrooms while people were sleeping. Sarah noticed that some of the faces in the photos had been circled in red marker. Others had been crossed out completely. That's when we heard the footsteps upstairs. Someone was walking around in the main level of the building, directly above us. Slow, deliberate steps like they were searching for something. We killed our flashlights immediately and huddled together in the dark. The footsteps continued for what felt like forever, moving back and forth across the floor above us. Then they stopped. Complete silence for maybe 30 seconds. And then we heard them on the stairs. Someone was coming down into the basement where we were hiding. We had 2 choices: try to hide among the camping equipment and hope they didn't find us or make a run for it. Tyler made the decision for us by bolting toward the staircase. We all followed, pushing past whoever was on the stairs in the darkness. I felt fabric brush against me, heard someone grunt in surprise, but we didn't stop to look back. We ran through that plant like our lives depended on it, crashing through buildings, jumping over debris, not caring about the noise we were making. We made it back to the car and drove straight to the police station, told them everything, the basement setup, the photographs, the person who'd tried to corner us down there. The cops took us seriously, especially when we showed them some photos we'd managed to take before everything went wrong. They went out to investigate the next day. What they found was worse than what we'd seen. The basement wasn't just a surveillance operation. It was a base of operations for someone who'd been stalking and potentially abducting people for years. They found detailed files on dozens of individuals, including several people who had been reported missing over the past 5 years. The most disturbing discovery was a collection of personal items that clearly belonged to the missing persons: jewelry, clothing, ID cards, trophies. They never caught whoever was living down there. By the time the police arrived, all the camping equipment was gone, but they left behind enough evidence to connect several disappearances to that location. The worst part: when the police showed us some of the photographs they'd recovered, we recognized some of the locations. This person had been operating in our town, watching people we might have known for who knows how long. We stopped doing urban exploration after that. The idea of stumbling into someone else's secret world, of accidentally walking into a situation we couldn't handle, was too much. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if we'd stayed hidden in that basement. If we'd let whoever it was come down those stairs and find us there among their collection of stolen lives. I try not to think about it too much, but every now and then I'll see a missing person poster and wonder if their photo was pinned to that wall in the cement plant basement. Some abandoned places aren't really abandoned at all. 3 stories from 3 different Reddit users, all connected by one common thread: abandoned buildings that refuse to let go of their past. Whether you believe these encounters were supernatural or simply the power of suggestion in creepy places, one thing is certain: some locations hold on to their history in ways we can't fully understand. If you enjoyed these stories, make sure to like and subscribe for more spine-chilling content. And remember, if you ever find yourself exploring an abandoned building, you might not be as alone as you think. Until next time, keep your lights on and your doors locked.